Erik Boland, New York Newsday, our guy when it comes to the New York Yankees. Is this almost time for baseball again?
Thankfully.
Really?
Thankfully.
I mean, I look outside. We had 6 to 10 inch snowstorm in Albany this week. I'm not so sure what we got going on here, but baseball sounds good to me. Erik Boland joins us here on Big Board Sports 104.5 The Team, ESPN Radio. Good morning, Erik.
Roger, Chris, happy spring training to you both.
When are you going to be in the sunshine?
I'm actually standing in it right now. I got down here late Saturday night and was out in front of the Yankees minor league complex Monday morning. So I've been down here all week.
Well, listen, everybody is pumping up the Yankees. You will have plenty to write about and talk about. That is for sure. Where are you starting? Give me a couple of things right off the bat that you are going to look for and write about in terms of headlines as spring training begins.
You know, basically, it's a cliche, I guess, but, you know, the beast is back. If you're looking big picture with the Yankees, I mean, they went through a little bit of a dip. I mean, they never, hit the skids like some teams do when they're rebuilding. They were able to rebuild on the fly. But, you know, they went through a stretch where of at least 2 or 3 years in a row where they weren't favored to win the division. They weren't favored to make the playoffs. And obviously they broke through last year, and now it's full steam ahead. This is the way since at least the Jeter, Posada, Rivera, Pettit, Bernie Williams, Paul O'Neill, on and on. Yankees of the 90s, where they were supposed to win 95 to 100 games every year. Every year they went in as a favorite to at least get to the ALCS and maybe the World Series, or the outright favorite to win the World Series, and they're back in that. They're back in that category this year with a completely new core, obviously. So, from a big picture standpoint, I think that's the first headline that comes to mind. And then there's just a whole bunch of sidebar stories with Aaron Boone in his first year and a new coaching staff, other than pitching coach Larry Rothschild. Obviously, what the lineup could look like with Giancarlo Stanton and Aaron Judge hitting back-to-back, something I wrote about today. Can Greg Bird stay healthy? We talked to him yesterday after he worked out at the minor league complex. Their pursuit of trying to add another arm, but still a pitching staff that I think looks pretty good as of now, even if they aren't able to add another starter. And which young guys are able to break through from that next wave, so to speak, and the first two guys that jump out from there is obviously Gleyber Torres and Miguel Andujar, a couple of infielders. So, and I could probably go on and on, but those are the things that sort of jump out.
You mentioned maybe adding. Are they done? Is this the team, or is Cashman still maybe trying to bring in another infielder? Obviously, Frazier goes to the Mets. I think Yankee fans are hoping he would end up back in the pinstripes, but are they done with the spending here?
They're done with the spending that would take them over the luxury tax threshold. If some of these free agents, and it's a whole other topic, obviously, with the glacial pace of free agent signings this winter, if a Yu Darvish, somehow his price and his demands were to drop to the extent that the Yankees could add him and still stay under the luxury tax threshold, then that would be something that I could see happening. And the same thing goes with an Arrieta or a Lance Lynn. But the Yankees are not in depth conversations with the agents for those guys trying to add them on, because right now, they're trying to get, a lot more than what the Yankees would offer. They are going to get under the luxury tax threshold for this year. That's been a goal of Hal Steinbrenner's that he's spoken about publicly for at least the last 5 years, and they're this close. They're not going to suddenly blow that up. But it doesn't mean that they're not looking, bargain hunting a little bit and seeing if they can add something here or there. So, I would certainly, they've got about $15 to $20 million to spend. So it's not like they're right at that threshold already, which is $197 million. So, I would say if you do, get something, it's going to be probably minor surgery to the roster rather than major surgery. But I think that they're fairly comfortable going into this, spring training anyway with what they have, and then they'll let it play out from there.
Erik Boland with us here on Big Board Sports 104.5, the Team, ESPN Radio of New York Newsday, and you can find Erik on Twitter at eBoland11. Erik, Aaron Boone was in Albany couple of weeks ago for a fundraiser, and in speaking with him, I was impressed and almost taken aback a little bit at his openness of how he plans to kind of approach the season from a managerial standpoint and his impressions of the prospects in the Yankees organization. What are your impressions so far of Aaron Boone, how he'll do as the Yankees manager, and how he'll do handling the New York media?
I mean, all indications are those things aren't going to be a problem. I mean, obviously, there's going to be, winging it a little bit by the seat of the pants managing, just because he hasn't done it before, and so things will come up in games, I'm sure, that, catch him off guard. But, he's got Larry Rothschild, who's been in the game for, 40 years or so, and, obviously has, a coaching staff that he's comfortable with. So it's not going to be him solely, relying on himself and only himself to make in-game calls. Of course, he's the primary decision maker, but he checked off a lot of boxes that Brian Cashman and the front office were looking for in the next manager. And Cashman said, kind of from the start, guys, that almost the least of his concerns was managerial experience. They were looking for more of a total package, and Boone certainly has been around the game his entire life, with his grandfather and his father playing in the big leagues, had a brother that played in the big leagues, and he's a super smart guy. He's open 100% to all of the analytics, which, basically, there's not a team in baseball that doesn't rely on them. It's the different scales on teams that rely a little more or a little less on it, but the Yankees are certainly one of the teams that's all in that department, and they wanted somebody with interpersonal skills, both most importantly in the clubhouse, but also with the media. And Boone checked off all of those boxes. And again, the only one that he didn't was managing experience.
How many home runs is Stanton going to hit and Judge going to hit?
Combined or individually? I mean, okay, I'll throw out, I'll throw out 45 for Judge and 49 for Stanton, and maybe I'm underselling them a little bit, but don't want to put too much pressure on them, right?
Hey, listen, if they're in that number and in that range, the Yankees are going to have a heck of a season, I can tell you that.
What do they hit as a team? Because, I mean, Bird is a 30-plus guy when healthy for a full season. So is Sanchez. I mean, as a team, they could obliterate a team home run record.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be shocked to see them hit 250 home runs as a team. I mean, I think that, you look, I mean, even Brett Gardner hit 21 home runs last year. Didi hit 25. We know what Judge and Stanton did a season ago, and my predictive total for them is probably, if they stay healthy, are going to be a little bit low. I wouldn't be shocked if both of them are at 50, maybe a little bit above. And so Greg Bird in a full season, if he's healthy, certainly is capable of hitting 30. Plus home runs. So Gary Sanchez, that tells you almost all you need to know that he's the sixth guy that I mentioned, or the fifth guy that I mentioned. So you just look up and down the lineup, and you see power and potential, and who knows about a Gleyber Torres or an Andujar if one or both of those guys wins jobs in the spring, and they're in there. It really just looks like a lineup that kind of is reminiscent of, at least in my time on the beat, I started in 2009, some of those offenses from 2009, 10, 11, that, consistently could mash the ball, 1 through 6 certainly, and even, 1 through 7 in some of those years. This team looks like it can be right up there with those, if not beyond it.
Erik, we appreciate a few minutes. Scoring runs is not going to be a problem of the Yankees, but how many runs are they going to give up? Well, guess what? Pitchers and catchers are reporting. That's where this team wins and loses. Score all the runs you want. You can't get anybody out. You're still not winning games. So I still think it falls on how the starting pitching is going to be for this New York Yankee team this season.
Yeah, I agree with you, and that was something when we were talking to Greg Bird yesterday and asked him about being in a lineup with some of the guys that I just mentioned, mainly Judge and Stanton, and he said, I think everyone's talking about our offense, but I think our pitching is going to be much better than people think. I know they're pretty confident that if the staff stays healthy, which is always every team in baseball says that, they think that it's going to be a well-rounded, well-oiled machine, and there's really no reason to think that it won't be.
Erik Boland, enjoy the sunshine. We'll be in touch for sure. Thanks for a few minutes here on Big Board Sports on 104.5 at Team ESPN Radio.
Roger, Chris, I enjoyed it. Take care.